Hey gang, Jane back today with another versatile crocheted granny square tutorial. This sweet little square has a pretty little flower in the middle, so I call her Happy Petal. She's a good square to play around with the color placement for different styles and has even more versatility in the sizes you can make with it. This tutorial will cover all 8 rounds of this square with a finished measurement of 6.5 inches by 6.5 inches. However, you can work just the first 4 rounds and get a smaller square that measures 4 inches, or even work it to the 6 rounds for a 5.5 inch square. Each square can be used to create different looks and different projects. The stitches in the square are pretty straightforward. The only different one here is the double crochet cluster that's forming the flower petals, and that's worked with only 2 double crochet. And since you've been asking me, I will also be showing how I work my ends in as I go. I will have a pattern in my shop for this final Happy Petal blanket, which will include the square pattern, charts, diagrams, and the join as you go written instructions. I will link to that pattern in the description below. You can find more information, including yarn suggestions, project pics, and the free pattern for the Happy Petal square itself over on my blog. I'm using a worsted weight yarn today to make this square. Parchment is my off-white, and that's Bernat Premium. Caramel, which is also Bernat Premium. Green Lagoon, which is Impeccable by Loops and Threads. And Oatmeal, which is Red Heart Super Saver. Those are the 4 colors I'll be using in this particular square. You'll also need a 5mm crochet hook. People often ask me what this crochet hook is. It's Susan Bates Silverloom Ergonomic. So it has a nice foam handle and it's nice and long. So really comfortable, and they last a long time. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a darning needle to do the ends. I am going to show you how I work in my ends as I go, and I use the darning needle along the way. So gather your supplies and your favorite colors and join me in making the Happy Petal square. Taking our caramel yarn, we're going to make a magic ring to start with. So lay the yarn across your palm, take it around your first 2 fingers, crossing it over and holding it with your thumb, pivoting your hand and taking it over the 3 fingers. So you have 2 strands here. You're going to go under the first one and over the second one, pulling it through and twisting it onto the hook. Then you're going to reach over to the strand going over your 3rd finger. You're going to insert your hook under, pulling a loop through, and that locks your ring in place, and now you can pull your fingers out. The first round we're going to do is going to be double crochets, and we're going to work into this magic ring, so it has to be nice and big and floppy. I already have a chain 1 here, so I need to work 2 more to get my chain 3 beginning, and that counts as our first double crochet stitch. We need 11 more double crochet into this ring for a total of 12 double crochet for our first round. Double crochets again are yarn over your hook, insert into the big floppy ring, pick up the yarn and pull it through, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2. That's your double crochet, and you now have 2 in your magic ring. Your magic ring needs to be this nice big floppy so that you can get everything into it, and then you can start to cinch it up. So let's work a few more. Another double crochet into your magic ring, and that will give us 3. So just continue to work those, and you're kind of hanging on to this ring so that it doesn't get out of control. I often hold my finger and thumb at the base of the stitch, and then I work another one, making room for the hook to go in, and then I create my stitch, and I can shift them down so they're close together, and go back in, shift my thumb and finger again to the base of the stitches, and then work another one. And I continue to work my way around to the 12 double crochet, and often I lose count, which I've done now, so let's count them. I often just count the posts. You could also count these V stitches here, but let's count our posts because I want to include the first chain 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we have 3 more we want to do. That's 1. That's 2. And that's 3. So let's count one more time just to make sure we have 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now I want to cinch up this ring so that they're all nice and tight in a circle. So take the hand that has the hook in it, take that hand and put your thumb and your finger at the base of the stitch, the last stitch you made. Take the cut end now and pull them away from each other. And you'll see how it cinches up the circle. You may have to readjust a little bit as you do it, because see, I've almost got it tight in there now. Pull a little tighter. Not so tight that you're going to break this yarn, just nice and firm. So now I've cinched up my magic ring and I want to join my round because I'm going to be finished with this color. I like to do an invisible join. You could do a slip stitch in the 3rd chain of that beginning chain 3. I'll show you how to do this just by going right into the center of that chain and then pull up a loop and pull it through the one on the hook. That would be considered a slip stitch join. But I like to do invisible joins. So back here, last stitch done, magic ring cinched in, I will cut my yarn. Again, I usually cut about 4 inches along. Pull the yarn through. This is where your darning needle comes in. Take the cut yarn and put it on your darning needle. And we're going to do an invisible join here. I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to go under the first double crochet, actual double crochet stitch. So go past the chain 3 and go to the first actual double crochet right here. And I want to go under the 2 loops at the top, that little V stitch. Go under those, pull it through, just gently. And now you're going to bring the darning needle back to where you came out of. So just put it in here. And I usually go down at least 1 extra loop at the back. Pull that through. And now you have this big floppy V. It looks like the other ones, but it's too large. So this is where we just snug it in, kind of play with it so that it looks just like the other stitches. There you have your invisible join. So now I did tell you that I'm going to show you how to work the ends in as we go. So at this point we have this end that we just did the invisible join and the one from the center. I like to work those in at the end of the first round. What I do with this one, and this is pretty common at the end of most of my rounds, I just darn them in the back loop only of these stitches. So I've done the invisible join here, and to lock it in place, what I do is I come back up into the center of that invisible stitch I just made. So see where we went down here, down 2 stitches? I'm going to come back up behind, just in these back loops right here, into the center of this stitch, and pull it up. Oh, my hand's getting caught there. And then I go back down again. That loops it once, and it kind of creates a nice little knot. And I'll tell you, that holds secure because when I make my squares, I do a lot of trial and error. So if I don't like my colors or I don't like the placement, I will rip them out. And if I didn't think I was going to rip them out and I did this extra lock, it's really hard to rip it out. It's even hard to find it. So know that this is a very secure way to end this round. Now to finish off the rest of this, I will go under the back loop only, and then under the back loop only of the next one. And I'm going to keep doing that. I don't have a lot of stitches on this round, but I don't need to go far because that really locked it in place. You can put as many of those on as you want and then pull it through. Gently, you don't want to change the tension of anything. And then keep on going, and I'll go all the way around this entire circle because you'll be working over this end on the next round. So you see, it might pull it in a little bit, just stretch it back out. And where did I've probably done 2/3 to 3/4 of the circle. So now I'm going to cut it. Sometimes I don't cut them because as I work the next round, they get worked into it as well. So this one right at the center was the magic ring end. We put that on our darning needle. And what I do there is I go under, keep on going. So see how it comes out of this one? I keep going underneath these stitches. And if you flip it over, you can't see the needle. So I'm right into the center. And I will continue so that I get a good, nice little secure pull on that. I'll give it a little more pulling as I go so that I know my center is nice and solid. I'll go all the way around at least once. Sometimes I'll just keep going in a circle and cut it. If you want to lock it in place, if you're not sure if it'll stay, you can go over top of the one you just came out of. Don't go back under it or it'll pull it out. Go over top of it and then reverse direction. The only reason I don't like doing that sometimes is because it does put a little gap there, but it does not show on the front. It depends on the yarn that you're working on. I find this worsted weight is a good weight. It doesn't really fall out. The thinner the yarn, the more likely it will fall out. And if you have a nice twisted yarn with a nice sheen, that's when I start to consider knotting my yarn because those ones will slip right out of everything. But this yarn doesn't really slip that much and it does tend to kind of work its way in and stay put. And once I've done that one direction and then the other direction, I will cut the end off. So I just go in and cut it nice, not too close. It'll work its way in and you don't want to cut your fabric. And that puts round one finished with the ends worked in. So let's take a look at one that we've already done. So we did our center. This one's the colors will be reversed. The center I've already done in the caramel. And in this one, I did the center in the green lagoon, which we're going to use up here. But I'm putting the whites in the same place. So the next round is going to be our flower. That's going to create this nice happy petal. So we want to work a double crochet cluster and it starts with a chain 2. So you're going to insert your hook into any of these spaces. I'm going to show you both how to do it without working your yarn in and with working your yarn in. 2 separate ways so that it doesn't get confusing for you. First, we're going to do it without working your yarn in. We're going to insert the hook into any one of these stitches and we're going to pull up a loop. Then we're going to chain 2. Now you want to do a double crochet into this same stitch that we just did the chain stitch in. So wrap your yarn around your hook, insert into that same stitch, pull up a loop. You're going to pull through 2 loops and then yarn over again and pull through the last 2 loops. This is your beginning double crochet cluster without working your yarn in. Now let's try it working our yarn in. So this method we're going to work our yarn in as we go. Insert your hook in any one of these stitches, pull up a loop and chain 1. Now we're going to take our cut end and throwing it up. It's white here, so it's a little hard to see on the background. And over top of your working yarn. So they're crossing over. So, and it's going to the back. And you're going to chain your second chain. And then you're going to bring the yarn back to the front over top of your working yarn. So it's like you're weaving it into the chain. But we only want to do a chain 2 to start with on the beginning because we're trying to create that petal shape. So the next thing we're going to do is a double crochet into the same stitch, and the yarn is coming from the top where the hook is now. So I hold it in place with my finger at the back, and we normally just wrap the yarn around the hook. You're going to go under the cut yarn and under the working yarn. So they're both over the hook. Then you're going to come back to the front and go under and into the stitch. And you're also going to have the cut yarn over top of the hook so it gets worked in back there as well. Then you're going to yarn around and pull up a loop. Now you've got a big cluster of yarn on there right now because that cut end is on there as well. Bear with it, it will work. Next you're going to yarn over and pull through the first, what would be considered the first 2 loops. So that loop and this double stranded loop. And then you're going to bring your cut yarn back up to the top where the hook is, over top of your working yarn, and then yarn over and pull through the last two. So this cut yarn is worked really well into that first cluster, like it's in there. And that becomes a lot easier to do once you've done it a couple times, quite a few times actually, but it becomes a lot more automatic. And that was a tricky one because we don't normally work clusters, so I was showing you how to work it into the cluster. So the yarn is now up by the needle. So at this point, we are ready to keep on working. And you're going to do this cluster, but this is a beginning cluster. You're going to work a regular cluster in each of these stitches. So let's go ahead and do the next phase of this stitch. So we're going to do a chain 2, and I'm going to show you how we work this yarn in. You bring this yarn now back to the front, and you chain 1. It's always over top of the working yarn, back and forth. And then for the second chain, take it back over top of the working yarn and chain 2. If you're not working your yarn in, don't just disregard the cut end parts and just chain 2. Now we're going to work a normal cluster into this next stitch. I'm going to show you how I do it with the cut end. So bringing your yarn back over top of the working yarn to the front, we're going to do another double crochet with this yarn again. So go under both strands and then go into the next stitch, and I also go under the cut end as well. So it's well worked in there, and pull up a loop. Now to do a normal cluster, we're only going to go through these first 2 loops on the double crochet. So yarn around your hook, pull it through the first 2 loops. At this point, I would bring the cut end back to the top, and I would get ready for the next double crochet. You have 2 loops left on the hook. Those stay there, and we do another double crochet. So you only worked half of this double crochet. So yarn over, insert into the same stitch, and I'm leaving my cut end back up here. Pull up a loop. You now have 4 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull through the first 2, 3 loops left, and yarn over and pull through all 3. That's your regular 2 double crochet cluster. From here, we're going to go ahead and do chain 2, double crochet cluster in each stitch all the way around. So I will work some more of this nice white yarn on this nice white background. And I'll show you, I don't really need to work any more of this yarn in because I've got it worked all through here, across here, back down, and back up. It's worked in there pretty good. So at this point, I could just cut that. If you're feeling you want to do a little bit more, you could work it into the next chain 2. So you would bring it to the front, not much there left to work with, chain 1, and then toss it to the back over top of your working yarn, and chain the second chain. Now let's work another double crochet cluster, and the cut yarn is finished. I'm just going to leave that little end at the back there. That's how I work that in. So let's continue with the actual pattern now. We're going to do yarn over the hook, insert into the next stitch, pull up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, leave the remaining 2 loops there. Yarn over and insert again into that same stitch, pull up a loop. Now you have 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2. You have 3 left. You're going to put yarn over and pull through all 3 of those stitches. As I'm doing this, I'm pulling down on the fabric and up on the hook. Chain 2. And we'll do it into the next stitch. I get a lot of questions as to how to work that yarn in, and that is how I do it. It can get confusing when you're trying to learn the pattern as well, but hopefully that helped. And now we're going to continue with the pattern so you can get a good feel for how this pattern actually works on this round. Next stitch, and we've done our chain 2, we're going to do a double crochet cluster, and you're going to wrap the yarn around the hook and insert into the next stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through the first 2, leave these 2 on the hook. Yarn over and insert into the stitch again. Pull up a loop. Now we have 4 loops on the hook. Pulling down on the fabric and up on the hook, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. 3 left, yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. That's your cluster. So I'm going to go ahead and just work through some more so that you can see what I'm doing here. At this point I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so I'm halfway there. I want 12 total, and I'm just going to go ahead and do the other 6. You can do it on your own or you can watch it along with me. This is one of the trickier rounds with these cluster stitches, so I want to make sure that you get the idea of what we're doing here and that you can really see it in action. So I have 1 more left to do, and right in here is our last stitch. Ending with a chain 2, and now I'm going to slip stitch in the top of the beginning double crochet cluster. So this little V stitch sitting right at the top here, I'm going to go under that, pull up the yarn, and pull it through the loop on the hook. That's my slip stitch, and that completes the flower portion and round 2. So what I want to do now is cut my yarn again, about 4 inches along, and I'm going to take my darning needle, pull it through, don't need that anymore, and we worked our first one in, and it's kind of sticking up there, kind of messy, so you can see it there. I'm going to trim that down a little so it's out of my way. So we have everything worked in except this last piece that we just worked with. I'm going to put my yarn back on my darning needle. So I'm going to take this slip stitched yarn and go down into the next stitch, pull it down, and again, if I want to lock it in place, I do the same thing as when I did the invisible join. I bring it back up 1 stitch behind, right through the center, pull it up, and then I can start to loop it. That gives it a little bit of a lockdown there. Now I'm going to go into the back loops only from the back to the front. See how I can just wiggle them on there. Oops, there, and there. I go as many as I can get. And then I pull it through gently. And then I'll do that again. And I take it around at this point, probably half of the circle so that it's well in there. So I'll pull that. I think we started there and I looped it there. So I feel it's pretty secure. So now I will cut it close to the fabric, but not super close. And now you have round number 2 done. Coming back to the square that's already finished, we've now done the flower and we're working into this squared out part. So you can see here, we've finished our flower and now we're going to use this color here, which is Green Lagoon, to create our first initial square. So holding my yarn at the back, we're going to work in the chain spaces, these chain 2 spaces. That's where we're going to be working, not into the actual cluster stitches. So what we want to do is we want to work a single crochet into any one of these chain spaces all the way around. So I work a standing single crochet by holding my yarn at the back with my finger, and then I wrap the yarn around the hook, still holding it there, inserting it into the chain 2 space and under the cut piece of yarn, so I'm working it in, and pull up a loop. I have the 2 loops on the hook. The cut piece of yarn is worked in at the back, and then wrap the yarn around and pull it through. This gives me a nice clean single crochet, and my cut end is already worked in back here, and I will continue to work it as I go. So that's our first single crochet. Now I want to chain 1, and I do that working my end in, toss the end over the working yarn to the top and over, and chain 1. Bring your cut yarn back to the front over top of the working yarn. Now work a single crochet into that same chain space. And I also go under the cut yarn, so it's also worked in at the back. Pull up a loop and complete my single crochet. So I have a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in this first chain space. Now we're going to chain 1. So I take my cut end and throw it back over top of my working yarn again and chain 1. Bring the cut end back over top of the working yarn, and we're going to work into the next chain space. In this chain space, we're going to do single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. So insert your hook and go under the cut yarn so that you're working it in and work a single crochet. Then we want to do a chain 1. So cut yarn goes over top of your working yarn, chain 1, and cut yarn comes back over top. So it goes over the top and then back over the top each time you work it, and a single crochet. So we've now worked our cut yarn in and up and around each of these stitches. And I'm going to do it for a little bit further, but the pattern is right here. Chain 1, then single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in the space, then chain 1, and then single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. That is the simplicity of this round. I'm going to work it around so you can watch me work it, and I'm also going to work the yarn in as I go. We're now at a chain 1, so I will toss my cut end over top of the working yarn, chain 1, bring it back over top of the working yarn, single crochet, tossing that yarn over, chain 1, and bringing it back always over top of the working yarn, single crochet, chain 1. Now I won't talk about the cut yarn, I'll just talk about the pattern, and you can watch me work the cut yarn. Single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in the same space, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in the same space, and chain 1. Now the cut end is pretty short here, so I'm just going to leave it be. I've worked a good portion around and it's up and down in each of these, so it's well worked in there. Let's continue with the pattern. I ended with a chain 1. In the next chain space, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1. Next chain space, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1. Let's keep going, and I'll just stay quiet and you can watch me. Last space, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in that same space, and a chain 1. Now I've worked my way all the way around, and I want to slip stitch in this first single crochet. So you go under those first 2 loops, and because it's a standing single crochet, it can be a little trickier to get in there, especially if you pulled it tight. Pull up the loop and pull it through the one on the hook. That's our slip stitch, but we're not cutting our yarn because we're going to continue to do the squaring off on the next round. So we finished off with a slip stitch in our first single crochet of the round, and we're ready for round 4. I want to get to the first chain space, which is right here. So I'm going to slip stitch into that chain space. So I'm literally just pulling the yarn through and through the loop on the hook so I can slip over to that chain space. This is where I'm going to start. Now I don't have any ends to work in as I go, so that's kind of nice. I'm going to chain 1 and work a single crochet into that first chain space. Then chain 1. Single crochet in the next chain space and chain 1. And single crochet in this next chain space and chain 1. Next stitch will be a half double crochet. So yarn around the hook, insert into the next chain space, pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. That's your half double crochet, chain 1. Now we've reached our first corner of the square. In this next chain space, we're going to work our corner. And the corner is going to be a half double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet. All of that is going to go into this corner. So let's work it. Half double crochet into the chain space, chain 1, double crochet into that same chain space, chain 1, and a half double crochet into this same chain space. There's our corner, chain 1, and that's the corner of our first edge. Continuing to work across, we're going to do a half double crochet in the next chain space and chain 1. Now we're back to where we started. We're going to do single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, and single crochet, chain 1. So 3 times. So we're going to do single crochet into the next chain space, chain 1, single crochet in the next chain space, chain 1, and single crochet into the next chain space, chain 1. So now we're working across the top edge of our square. Half double crochet in the next chain space, chain 1, and we're back to our next corner. Again, it's going to be like this one, with the 3 stitches in the chain spaces all into the same space. Let's go ahead and work that. Half double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet, chain 1. And there we have our next corner. And we're working across the next edge. So let's keep on working this whole round. Half double crochet in the next chain space, chain 1. Single crochet in the next chain space, chain 1. Single crochet, chain 1, always into the next chain space, single crochet, chain 1. Half double crochet and chain 1. Each of those are in their own chain spaces. And we're back to the next corner. It's a very small square, so it works up pretty quick. Into this next chain space, half double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet, chain 1. So I have one more edge to work across and one more corner before we come back to where we started. Let's keep going. Half double crochet in the next chain space, chain 1. And then each of these will be worked into chain spaces. Single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, and single crochet, chain 1. Half double crochet, chain 1, and we're going to work our last corner into this chain space, which is the next one. Half double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet, chain 1. Now I have one more chain space before I get back to where I started. That's going to be a half double crochet, chain 1, and we're ready to join. That completes round 4, so we want to do a slip stitch in that first single crochet. And now I can cut my yarn about 4 inches. And that completes the square. So now we're going to work this yarn in. We're going to go down into the next stitch, up into the stitch one back, like one behind it. And that loops it around and kind of knots it in there for us. And then I go under the back loops only. You might think, it's not only the back loops only, it's not going to secure it in there. But as you work the next round, it actually works them into that round as well. So it's a lot more secure than you might think. We probably, for the most part, over secure the yarn because there's many times I try to pull out my squares and I can't get them pulled out. They won't come out. So there we go. I've worked it from here all the way to here. And now I'm going to clip it. I'm also going to clip this one here from the 2 rounds before there. And you can see all my ends are worked in and we're still going. So this square itself can be a really nice square to work. Now at this point, the square measures 4 inches. So my original inspiration for the square was to make a pillow cover like this, or even an entire blanket like this. So just to give you an idea at this point, you can stop here with the square and make them into a cute and colorful, kind of a retro themed pillow. I joined these using a single crochet from the wrong side to give that white accent at the seams. That's just one idea you can do, but let's keep going on making the square a little bigger. So again, looking at a square that I've already done, we've done the center part here. This one is 4 inches by 4 inches, so a small square, great for scrap busting, or we can make it bigger by adding a few more rounds. So I've got 4 more rounds here, 2 of each color. So let's go ahead and take a look at these rounds. We're going back to our parchment color and we're going to join our yarn in any one of these corners. But since I have a double crochet in the corner, I want to go to the chain space just to the left of it. Doesn't matter which corner you choose, but you want the chain space just to the left of the double crochet. And that's where we're going to join. I'm going to join with a standing single crochet. So holding my yarn at the back, right where I'm going to join, wrap the yarn around the hook, insert into that space and under the cut yarn, so you're working it in. Pull up a loop and then pull through both loops. That completes your single crochet and it's a nice clean beginning single crochet with the yarn at the back worked in. This round is just going to be single crochets and chain 1s until we get to the corners, at which point we'll be doing chain 3s around the corners. So fairly easy round, and I'm going to work my yarn in as I go again. So taking my cut yarn, I throw it over top of the yarn. Seems to be, I'm always working in white when I do this. Over top of the working yarn. So it crosses over and to the back. And we chain 1. Now we bring the cut yarn back to the front, over top of the yarn, crossing to the front. And we work a single crochet in the next chain space, working under the cut yarn as well, so it works its in. That keeps it hidden from these chain spaces. It's not stringing along the back, along the bottom. You're actually going up, across the chain, and down with this cut yarn. That's what this working it in does. So let's try that again. You're going to chain one. So what I want to do first is take my cut yarn across my working yarn, chain one, and then take my cut yarn and bring it back to the front. And we're going to work a single crochet in the next stitch, or in the next chain space actually. And you're going to work over top of this cut yarn. So if you're not working your yarn in, the pattern is simply single crochet into the chain spaces and chain one. Single crochet in the next chain space, chain one. We're going to work that way all the way to the corner. I'm going to continue to work my cut yarn in so you can watch me do that. It becomes automatic once you get used to the way that it feels. And I get to a point where it really is much faster for me to work it in than to darn them in later. Oops, everything's flying around here. I'm watching my big knot of yarn creep into the camera. And I work this cut yarn until I get down to a nubby, or at least across this first section. And we're almost to the corner here. So I've reached the corner and I'm going to work a single crochet into this right to the right of the double crochet. And then I'm just going to let this cut end go. Not going to bother with it anymore. It's worked all the way up and down this entire row, this entire edge. So you can see here I've worked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 single crochets with chain ones in between them. Now that we've reached the corner, I'm going to chain 3, and we're going to skip over top of that double crochet because we're not working into any of the stitches themselves, and we're going to work a single crochet into the next chain space. So the corner for this round, you can see my nubby's kind of sticking around there, is just simply a chain 3 over top of this double crochet. Now we're going to do the same thing we just did across the next edge. I'm going to go ahead and do this, and you can watch me do it so that you can see what I'm working with. So we worked across the next edge. I've come to the next corner. So here I will be doing a chain 3. And then single crochet in the next chain space. And then we're working across our next edge. This is a pretty simple row, just single crochets and chain stitches. In fact, these last 4 rows are fairly simple. I've come to the next corner and I'm going to do a chain 3 around this next corner. And we're on our last edge here. We're going to work across to this corner. So you can see here, I'm going to work into this chain space, single crochet, chain 3, and we're back to where we started. So I want to do a slip stitch in this first single crochet. And that's the end of round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the end of round 5. Now moving on to round 6, we want to slip stitch in this first chain space. So just insert your hook into the chain space, pull the yarn through and pull it through the loop on the hook. So it just moves you over to that chain space, which is where we want to start. The next round will be half double crochet chain 1s. So to begin with, we want to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. That counts as our first half double crochet and our first chain 1. Next, we will half double crochet in the next chain space and chain 1. That's what we're going to do all the way across. I don't have any yarn to work in, so that's kind of nice. You don't have to worry about that. This really gives the same look as the round before it, except that the stitches are longer. So it just gives a nice extra little space, kind of a design idea. Oops, I split my yarn there. Now I worked across the top edge and I want to work into my corner. The corner will be half double crochet, chain 3, and a half double crochet in the same chain 3 space. That creates the corner, and we keep working the same as before. Chain 1, half double crochet in the next chain space, chain 1, half double crochet in the next chain space, and chain 1. Continue across until you reach the next corner. Here we are at the next corner, and we do the same thing. Half double crochet, chain 3, and a half double crochet. And then we straighten out our yarn because it's really knotting. And we're back after I just got rid of a massive knot in my yarn. So chain 1, half double crochet in the next chain space, chain 1, half double crochet in the next chain space, chain 1, and keep on moving. So now we've reached the next corner, half double crochet, chain 3, half double crochet, chain 1, and keep moving across the next edge. Next corner, half double crochet, chain 3, half double crochet, chain 1, and we're back to where we started. We want to do a slip stitch in the second chain of the beginning chain 3. That would be considered the top of our half double crochet. So we just pull through a loop and the one on the hook. And now we can cut our yarn because I'm done with this white yarn. Pull that through. There we are with this portion of the square, and I'm going to work this end in the same as I worked the other ones. You go down into the next, it's actually a chain because we worked into the second chain of a 3 chain. So just go into the center of that chain, pull the thread through the yarn, bring it back up through the stitch you just slip stitched. That gives you a nice loop. And then we go into the back loops only, all the way along this row. And I go as far as I can. I just bunch them on the needle, pull it through, stretch it out so it looks nice and even, doesn't pucker your work. You can take this around the corner, but I think I'm good. So I'm going to clip this yarn. And there we have 6 rounds completed with our ends worked in, which is a really nice bonus. You can again stop here and just use this square, or you can add 2 more rounds. So I'll get you going on those next 2 rounds. So with this next one, I'm going to use this color Oatmeal and do 2 more rounds. But this round that I'm going to do now, you can do as many or as few of this round to make the square bigger or not as big, but just to add in an extra color if you want to, which is what I wanted to do. We go to one of the corners here, the chain 3 corners, and we want to start in here. We're going to work a standing single crochet in here. If you don't like doing the standing single crochet, I'll show you the alternative. This is the way I always used to do it. You insert your hook, wrap the yarn around, pull it through. That's considered a slip stitch join. You chain 1, and then you work a single crochet into that same stitch. This is a perfectly legit way to do this, and it is the way I did it for years. However, I really love the standing single crochet now, and it's become my go-to. I have a much slower video for this if you're having trouble seeing what I'm doing, but I'll show you again here. I hold the yarn at the back with my fingers. I wrap the yarn around the hook first, then I insert it into the space underneath the cut yarn at the back, yarn around and pull it up. So I have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through both of those. That gives me my standing single crochet, which doesn't have a slip knot. That's the way that I do it. And now we're going to chain 1. So again, I'm going to work my yarn in. So I won't really talk about it this time because it's the same way I've been doing before, but this is how I do it. So I will do it while I show you the pattern. We're going to chain 1 and single crochet in the first chain space. Chain 1 and single crochet in the next chain space. See how I'm working that yarn in as I go? Chain 1, single crochet in the next chain space. And you can see as we're working here how these half double crochets gave you just a little bit of extra texture in here. So these are the singles, then we had halves, now we're going back to singles, and it gives it a nice little different geometric look to it. Again, chain 1, single crochet in the next chain space, chain 1, single crochet in the next chain space, and I'm pretty much at the end of my cut yarn, so I'm just going to throw it up to the top one more time for the next chain and then let it go. And continue with single crochet, chain 1 in each of these chain spaces all the way across. So this round is the same as 2 rounds before. So this is round 7. It's the same as round 5. When we reach the corner and we do our chain 1, we do a single crochet, chain 3, and a single crochet. Now we've worked our way around the corner and we're going to continue across the next section the same way as we did this one. Again, a very simple stitch. Chain 1, single crochet in the next chain space, chain 1, single crochet in the next chain space, and keep on going like that. So this one I'm not going to complete all the way around. I'll let you go ahead because it's very simple. Just single crochets and chain 1s, and when you get to the corners, you do the single crochet, chain 3, single crochet. So I'll meet you back here where we'll finish off this round. So we've come to the last corner and I've worked the same way all the way around this square. When we get to this last corner, we do the single crochet, chain 3, but we already worked a single crochet in to start it, so we will just slip stitch into that single crochet. And that completes round 7. Now I've gone ahead and done another round exactly the same. So let's get started on that and then I'll let you go ahead with it. You want to slip stitch into the next chain space because we're only working in chain spaces. So insert your hook into that first chain space, pull up a loop and pull it through the loop on the hook. You've now slip stitched over to the chain space. Now we're going to work a chain 1 and a single crochet to start the next round, all into that first chain space. Then we chain 1, move to the next chain space and single crochet. Again, chain 1, move to the next chain space, single crochet. We're going to do this all the way across this top edge, and I'll just move quickly along here till we get to the corner. Then when we get to the corner, we work a single crochet, chain 3, and a single crochet into that same chain 3 space, and we've turned our corner just like we did before. You're going to do this all the way around. I'll meet you back here to finish off the square. And then when we reach the end of our round, we work into this chain 3 space, single crochet, chain 3, single crochet, chain 1, and we're back to where we started. Slip stitch into this first single crochet, and then you're going to cut your yarn, which I already did, pull it through, and then we're going to darn that last end in the same as we did all of our other ones. You're going to go down into the next stitch, right down the center of it, up through the center of the stitch that you just slip stitched, and then you're going to work it in to the back loops only. I like these edgings because they're perfect for my join as you go. And you'll see I'll have a pattern up for this happy petal with a blanket with the join as you go instructions as well. So see how that's all finished there? I'm just going to clip this last little end. And there you have your finished square with no ends on the back. And that completes the Happy Petal Square. Try out each of the sizes for different project ideas and even mix up the color order to create a different look to your square. You can check out my shop for patterns using the square. I'll leave the link below for that. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to my channel so you're sure to catch all my tutorials as they come out. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.